Please allow me to introduce our final speaker this morning, Maeve Campbell. She's climate presenter, producer and reporter for Channel 4 News. She's also a columnist at Forbes and she's a media advisor for Cambridge University's Sustainability Institute. She's hosted the prestigious Blue Earth Summit, Tech Arena in Stockholm, the UN's Goals House and Channel 4's first ever climate summit. Most recently, she's been hosting Volkswagen's Sustainability Forum as well. She's a very busy lady and she's joining us now to talk about how we can get the message right on climate change and sustainability. Maeve.
Since the Industrial Revolution, since the dawn of coal, oil, and gas, we've been destroying the planet bit by bit. We have to face that. And by doing that, we've been making the Earth a less and less stable home for us to live on. Over the last 100 years, we've been causing the climate to change. And the reason I say we is because sometimes I think people think climate change is almost an abstract weather phenomenon that happens up there. But it's actually human caused, and that's us, we're humans. The problem is, climate isn't sexy like AI. It's not fast like geopolitics. It's slow and often invisible. Imagine if carbon had a colour, how useful that would be. If carbon was orange or purple or pink, it would mean that we would be able to see it in the atmosphere. We could look up and literally see the planet getting warmer. The hue would darken over time, and it would really help us. But the problem is, life isn't like that. Does anyone remember when the sky turned orange in New York last year? It was quite a big event. We all woke up one morning, we turned on our TVs, or we looked out the window if we were in the US, and the whole skyline in New York City was a kind of dark, almost apocalyptic shade of orange. It was quite scary. What happened? So at the time, there were wildfires happening in Canada, and the pollution from that blew over to the US and made the sky orange. Now, that definitely had an effect. I think we all kind of gasped that day. People didn't really leave their houses in New York. So it definitely had an impact. But that doesn't happen very often in such a visible way. But the thing is, climate change is becoming visible now, just in different ways to this. So a few years ago, I went on holiday to Valencia with some friends. It should have been dreamy, sangria, sun, siestas, Spanish food. What ended up happening was that we actually got caught in a record heat wave. 46.8 degrees Celsius in 2023. Just take that in for a sec. We had an apartment with no aircon, 3 friends, 1 fan. Unbearable, to put it lightly. Just this Christmas, I went up to the Lake District with my family to go walking, to go cycling, one of my favourite places in the world. But on a January, cold, Christmassy morning, we woke up and there was nearly a metre of floodwater outside the house. Safe to say the holiday was ruined. The car that we were driving was destroyed. The electric bikes we've been using to get around were destroyed. And we actually were trapped in the house for nearly 24 hours while the water went down. So I'm telling you these stories because they're personal to me, but they're actually not just personal. They're symptoms of a global problem. And as dramatic as those moments felt to me in the UK or in Spain, they're actually nothing compared to what people are experiencing every single week in the global south. Deadly droughts in East Africa. Killer heat waves in India. And wildfires sweeping across South America. Whether we like it or not, and as uncomfortable as it is in this room to sit here in the lovely ivy and talk about this, it is real, it is happening, and all of these things are connected. So who's to blame? Oh no. Who is to blame? Is it me and you sitting in this room? Not really. What I would say is that it's the system's fault. In 2004, many of you might not know this, BP invented the term carbon footprint. Why did they do this? It was part of a marketing campaign to shift the blame from them, the polluters, onto you, the individuals, and your footprint, your one little footprint. Forgot to bring your canvas bag to the supermarket? You're the problem. Caught drinking out of a plastic bottle? You're the problem. Dare to go on a plane once a year to go on holiday? You're the problem. Obviously, overconsumerism and individual action do matter hugely, but it's systems that caused this mess. And that's why we need systemic change with everyone on board. Now, perhaps the most frightening thing about climate change is that no one is immune. Literally no one. Like, can you think of many other things that no one is immune to? What I would say is we can flip that on its head. It is frightening, but also it means that climate change is what connects us. It's actually not what divides us. Whether you're rich or poor, you're still affected. Think about the wildfires in LA. In the Palisades, millionaires lost their homes, lost their pets, lost their memories. And whilst you might say, well, it's all right for some, in the Palisades, I'm sure they have the means to, get back on their feet much easier than most of us. But some things are irreplaceable. Just this week, as was mentioned, the floods in Texas were absolutely tragic. Young girls just going on a summer camp were washed away because the floods were so sudden. Climate change, without a doubt, is the defining issue of our time. And I get to tell these stories for a living. So that brings me to my role. Oh, this is very sensitive. So, I'm a journalist and a communicator. My responsibility is immense because I get to tell these stories and I get to make the science accessible and human, to talk about the impacts, but also the opportunities that arise. To talk about climate in ways that are clear, inclusive, urgent, and sexy, because let's be honest, sex sells. And always to be hopeful and solution focused. These are some articles I've written in the last few years. Over here, a leather alternative that are some people that I met recently who are making leather out of beer, literally brewing beer to make leather, to try and disrupt the industry. And this was quite a fun one as well. London's first renewable rave in Hackney, which had solar sound systems and edible cups. So what I've realised through doing my job and throughout doing my career is that climate has a role to play in every single story. And we shouldn't be scared of that. So whether you're reporting on tech, on music, on entertainment, on sport, on business, there's literally always an angle. Let's take Wimbledon last week. On Monday, it was too hot for the stars to play their best, let's be honest. Or Glastonbury, say you're a music journalist. Why aren't we talking about the artists who are doing sustainable touring or who are being creative about how to green the production of their shows? AI, the zeitgeist of the moment, clearly. But we can't ignore the energy and water use associated with it, and we need to be talking about that. Finance. Finance isn't just money. Finance, as has already been mentioned, is insurance. People literally can't get home insurance because they've just found out that their houses are built on floodplains or in newly designated wildfire zones. Environment isn't a beat anymore. It's the backdrop to everything. And it's the same for business. Sustainability shouldn't be an afterthought or a marketing ploy for a business. It should be embedded into every single part of the supply chain in every single company. Otherwise, we spot it. We spot greenwashing, as journalists certainly, but also as consumers. We are eagle-eyed and ready to see who is doing it right and who's pretending. Communication matters. Being honest matters. Let's take Lego as an example. Just a few years ago, Lego decided to come up with a scheme to make their famous bricks out of recycled plastic bottles. Sounds great, right? What happened? They actually found out that the process of manufacturing the bricks out of the recycled bottles was actually more carbon intensive than the original one. So they scrapped it. But in scrapping it, they admitted what they were doing. They told us about it. They wrote an op-ed in the FT. And that really, really, really matters as consumers. When you show your workings, when you admit your mistakes, that builds trust. So, climate change needs a PR makeover, and I passionately believe that. I don't know if any of you recognize these two images here, but in my climate storytelling, what I try to do is to be creative, to be weird, to be hopeful, and to be funny. So on the left here, we have Oblivia Coal Mine. Now, she's pictured here sipping on oil to satirize the links between fossil fuels and our pensions. That was a big campaign with Make My Money Matter last year. On the right, we have Benedict Lumberjack, the sweltering hot CEO sitting in a sauna, all the while funding the destruction of our forests. I warmly, warmly encourage you to go and watch these videos. They are brilliant, they are satire, and they work. That's how you reach people. Now, if we don't tell these stories, the question is, who will? And that's my job. Everyone has a role in the narrative. Whether you're a CEO, whether you're an NGO, whether you're a policymaker, a healthcare worker, a teacher, a parent, or just a concerned citizen. What I want you to take away from today is to let your words and your work reflect the future that you want for your children. To speak up, even if it's imperfect, even if you feel like a hypocrite, because let's face it, we're all hypocrites. To remain resilient amid rampant skepticism, because the stakes are high. And delay is the new denial.